Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Pillars of Eternity 2. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that it chose to join me today as we have a chat with Langrath and also see what that is. Last episode I didn't know if I had a conversation with Langrath before, and the reason why I thought it might have been a conversation that we had before was that I think we could have had that conversation, but I just moved on.
You return with news, I hope.
Yes. No, actually, no news. I'm curious about you.
Let's sate your curiosity then.
I'd like to know what you think of a few of the other archmages.
Ask. I might even tell you the truth.
The smile that quirks her lips has an unusual savage quality to it as my taskbar appears for a brief moment. Don't know why it does that. An unusual savage quality to it. Is that a jab at her being an Orlan? I take offense to that, honestly. She's the sweetest person forever. How do you feel about Maura?
After visiting this place, I wonder if she truly developed the summoning magic bearing her name, or if Wal gifted her it.
What can you tell me about Tane?
He's exhausting and exasperating, but smarter than he seems. He is an archmage, after all. Still, he's probably the dumbest of us.
I can't disagree. Surely you have thoughts on Arkemir as well?
The definition of a snake. One wonders what cold-blooded malfeasance he perpetrated upon the Huana, that they allowed him to build a castle in the heart of their greatest city.
Shortly after he moved into Periki's Overlook, the Royal Deadfire Company complained of imp droppings on the deck of their warships. Take from that what you will.
I know. We know exactly what happened. Dare I ask about Consul Hot, since I'm carrying his skull with me and all that? I think I am. Am I? I should.
It gladdens my heart to see he's finally found his proper place in the natural order. As your pet.
Enjoy your delusions, parasite. The Watcher would not hesitate to strike off your head if it served her interest in some mediocre capacity.
Don't listen to him. I would never, for sure. Let me ask you something else.
Let's sate your curiosity then.
You don't seem to like the imps much.
I suppose compared to Tane, anything less than rapturous exaltation looks like deepest loathing.
That's fair. I honestly am ashamed that I asked that question.
I neither like nor dislike them. They serve a useful function, and their constant flatulence aside, they can be rather sweet.
See, she just says the things that are correct. It is true. If you disregard the farts, can I become an archmage?
It seems to me you're not even an apprentice, much less a practiced wizard.
I think you can. I remember reading about that, about becoming an archmage. We can't, obviously, because we're not a wizard. But yeah, that's enough.
Very well.
Tane.
Always nice to see a friendly face, even if it doesn't have any skin on it.
Tane winks at Council Hot. I thought he was talking about me.
I despise you, Tane. If I had hands, I would wring your scrawny neck. That goes for everyone in earshot.
Yes. He's one of the hardest fights in the first game. The head rotates, the head of Council Hot, taking in its surroundings.
What a filthy, disorganized hovel.
You're one to talk. I saw your library at Cragholt.
You have no basis on which to judge me, simpleton. I've seen what you carry.
That's true as well. He narrows his eyes. A bunch of dogs and cats inside of my backpack.
Ugh. I have forgotten how much I detest mortal company. The stench alone is unbearable.
I have some questions for you, Consul Hot.
We have nothing to discuss, you insipid pustule. I have found more competent sea captains floating face down in watery graves. What would you like to know?
Even... Those are two contradictory lines. He narrows his eye sockets. I was gonna say... He narrows his eyes? How does he do that without eyes? He has eye sockets, and apparently they're made out of silicone. It's fine enough. If I had a skull, I would want it to be made out of silicone or something rubbery like that, so I can fit it in anything and just be like, I don't know. I'm like putting in my what's the name of the thing that you put the money on? Not pocket. You know, the thing that you have that's like a book. And I mean, it could be like a purse. A purse. Yes. Putting my no. That's not what it is. Wallet. Wallet is the word. Yes. Putting in my wallet and just take out a full human-sized skull made out of silicone at any moment. Especially if it had all these cool jaggies, or maybe not so much. What do you know about whale's body?
It will swallow you like a piece of half-chewed gristle, depositing you where you belong atop a divine dung heap. Beyond that, I know little.
You know little. Any thoughts on our current mission?
Our mission? If you presume to imagine that we have similar goals, allow me to correct your catastrophic error in judgment. We have only one thing in common. We both want you to die.
I want me to die? I don't see it that way.
Isn't it obvious? The way you launch yourself into peril at every turn? These are the actions of one who has lived too long, wandered too far, and willingly climbs to the precipice of oblivion.
Or somebody that has just a save game feature.
Self-annihilation is the most natural ambition a sentient mind can achieve. And when you find yours, I will be there to cheer you on.
That's a really interesting take on it, actually. Because if you're not sentient, at least in the sort of thinking about it in superficial terms, if you're not sentient and it's just an animal and just going off of instinct, then self-preservation is your most important prerogative. Not always. There's a lot of cases where that's not the case. Where self-preservation gives way to other things in non-sentient beings, as far as we know, being non-sentient, because even sentience doesn't have a test. You can test for sentience. That's not a thing, because sentience is not a scientific. I mean, it is a scientific term to some degree, but it isn't. You can test it. You know what I mean? It's just like you can never know for sure. It's the whole, what is it called? Shanghai's box? What is it called? Is it just Chinese box? I think it might be Chinese box. It's the whole Chinese box dilemma, and it's not really a proof of concept, the dilemma. But if you don't know about it, I recommend you look it up. It's an interesting thing. But it is so going back to this, it's interesting that he says that, because as soon as you get sentience, what can you do if not self-annihilation in regards to things that a non-sentient mind would do? Because that's basically the only thing. It isn't, because again, it happens in nature. That's self-annihilation. It's a thing. Anyway.
You sure you don't want me putting him in my lantern?
Shodi, you might very well come to that. She skulls at the skull. That's all for now.
I will be listening, Watcher. I always am. And when my time comes, you will pray for the indignity of bobbing in my shadow.
I don't think you will be listening. I think this is mostly this DLC that has you. Otherwise, the game has forgotten you, as it should.
No. Yours will be a more horrible fate. That is a promise.
No, I think he's gonna be a villain.
I miss that guy.
Tane grins up at the skull as it slowly rotates in quiet loathing. Because it's a floating skull, it's a murmur, or something. Murmur? Mir? What? It's a thing. You and Console Hot are on the best of terms, are you?
It's not like that. We're good friends. We just disagree on everything.
Your chaotic orb is amateurish folly. Any half-wit can lose control of a spell and be delighted by its unpredictable consequences. Your career should have been consigned to the waste bin of history before it even began.
That's our console hot, right? You old trickster.
Tane scratches the back of his head and chuckles softly. The Hand Occult manages the Halls Obscured, correct?
I'd be surprised if most of the Hand even knows that this place exists.
But didn't we talk about that last episode?
They want the world to think they write travel. Not even the Hand could tell you which facts they edited for convenience's sake, which ones they spelled out, and which ones they spelled wrong.
That's
and this could be where it all happens.
Yes, that's what happened last episode. But these didn't. How do we separate facts from the Hand's version of the facts?
That is a head-scratcher.
Tane scratches his head.
I suppose the solution is to be skeptical. You have to ask yourself, how much do you trust anything in a book? Does a story become more true because someone paused to write it down?
This is a thing in history, and me having studied it, it just sort of, it's an important aspect of archaeological. I say archaeological because basically, if you're studying anything that's older than like 200 or 300 years, this issue becomes a ever-present question. And I would think in a world as old as, well, it's not actually that old. It's an interesting thing. This world is pretty old, but it's like the history of more than 500 years seems to be mostly forgotten, which is interesting. But yeah, so maybe it wouldn't come up as often, but it also doesn't come up for the life of many people, or the vast majority of people in our world, that you have to doubt what is written in a book. Although you should, but it's kind of complicated. The level to which you have to doubt is on a different one, and specifically when you're studying when you're doing archaeological research, you have to engage with the bibliography. Is that how it's pronounced? Bibliography? That doesn't sound right. Anyway, the books. That's what it means. You have to engage with the books in a different way, because again, if it's written down, it doesn't mean that it happened like that, and it never does. It never means that. What it does mean, though, and that's what you should take away from books, is that somebody wrote that down, and that is the archaeological fact. The fact isn't what is written there. Like, imagine you read, I don't know, let's think of a book that had one of the, let's see, here in Portugal, which is where most of my archaeological studies focused on, there's a book that, it's not a book actually, it's a compendium of texts, but you can assemble it in a book. One of the first, I think it is the first census in medieval history of Europe. What happened here in Portugal 200 years before the French did. So it's a very important book, just from the fundamental aspect of having an understanding of the territory of the country, because the country existed already back then. Did I say the century? It's the 13th century. But what happens is, if it's written right there that somebody has a house here and a house there, or a castle, or even a castle, specifically in designations of castles, like somebody has a castle so-and-so with these many hands and these many, they usually counted like stuff like swords and weapons, which wasn't very, they wouldn't have a lot of them, but they would still have some. Just because it's written there, it doesn't mean that that's the case. And that's very obvious when you're talking about a census, because you inherently know that it is somebody asking them and just being like, how many houses do you have, and how many hands do you have in them, and how many weapons, and they would tell you back. So on a census, it's very obvious, right? You know that what you're reading isn't necessarily the factual case. But if somebody writes that a city was besieged for 40 days, and the siege was broken because a brave baker killed the gate guard and opened the gates to let us in. Like, this is a specific myth. It's a myth in Portuguese history. I think it was the siege of Lisbon. I'm not really sure if it was, but I think it was. No, was it? I know the name of the baker that in question here. The Baker of Aljubarrota, which is a very lovely name. But the point is, that didn't necessarily happen. But because it is written in text, and because it was repeated over and over again by people who read the texts, it is a myth. It's just, when I say myth, it is by many people taken as a real historical fact, but it isn't a real historical fact. We have no proof of that, apart from the writing. In fact, we have hints that it might have been not only a lot more complicated than that, kind of the opposite of that. Not what is the opposite of a baker? No, I think it was a baker specifically who was defending the gate or something like that. I'm not really sure, and it's just legends, you know how it is. But that's why accountability in historical record is so important in modern days, because we need the people from 3-5 centuries in the future, or 1,000 years, to have at least a better inkling of how accountable our historians today were. And if we can't, record that, if we can't give record an assurance of that, then all of our historical record is, it's not forfeit, but it is compromised. And things that we write down and we say that Zuckerberg was the founder of YouTube, and we write that down, or founder of YouTube, founder of Facebook is what I mean, and write that down. It might not be possible for generations in the future for them to know for a fact that that was the case, for as much as it might or matter or not, which probably does matter a lot because it's a very important thing. Facebook is, Zuckerberg less so, but still.
I should really charge for discourse this engaging.
No. Yes, you should. I shouldn't. I don't. I don't consider necessarily my things to be engaging. That's why I try to skip as much of my rambles as possible, even though I ramble a lot, especially when talking to these two. It is engaging though. It is interesting. The subject, the themes are interesting. That's why I ramble about them. What's the hand's objective?
If they ever had one, you can bet they've changed it a dozen times over the years. Anyone who wants to control information on that scale wants to engineer society.
Yep, that's more or less what the, I wondered if it's, because this is the same theme as the Ingwithans, creating the gods to engineer society, as it were. Engineering society. That's how society is engineered. In the sense that, you know, it's just like it's controlled by people in power. Unless you don't have hierarchies, it's always going to be engineered. To one extent or the other. Like, some things might not be. Like, specifically cultural things might not be. To as large an extent as other things, like economy, for example, or countries and stuff like that, but still.
Whatever they plan on doing with that power, you can bet they'll lose control over it in the end. You don't keep something like a society constrained to just one vision.
Oh, you do. You just probably need Facebook. So, as I was talking about before. What do you think of the Hand, Langrath?
Some speak of the Hand occult as hyper-competent masters of four-dimensional Hazatoa, when they know of them at all. In truth, the Hand's operations are haphazard and ill-executed. We know they exist because they inevitably leave evidence of their work wherever they go. That they succeed in spite of themselves is hardly evidence of the Hand's competence.
I can agree to that. Console Hot, any experience with the Hell and the Cult?
Amateurs. Time and again, their agents showed up at my doorstep and wormed their way into my confidence, hoping to sabotage my research. I sent them home with bags of their own teeth, as a parting reminder that my time is precious and my patience thin.
Ask away. You know me, I'm an open book with plenty of pictures.
Yeah, goodbye, it's done. Okay, what is this? Is it a teleporter?
As you approach the pool, an unpleasant weight grows in the pit of your stomach. It feels like the moment the floor gives out beneath you, just before the plunge, but somehow suspended in time. A sensation like static electricity tingles across your skin. A whirling vortex of essence twists within the pool. It does not stir the water around it in the slightest. Langrath and Tane watch you from afar, the latter's expression bright with undisguised curiosity. Langrath's countenance, on the other hand, remains characteristically guarded.
Don't suppose any of you know what this is?
Looks like water to me.
Tane reaches in and splashes you, oblivious to his hand disturbing the vortex.
Unusual arcane energy emanates from the pool. If the Watcher can see it, I suspect it's some form of window into the divine realms.
Oh.
That was my second guess.
Tane smiles at Langrath, as do we all.
Feels real old and quiet, Watcher. Like a doorway to an ancient tomb.
You think maybe it's the soul of some fish? Hey, Watcher, fishes got souls, don't they?
Ask Shodi, I don't know that.
We do indeed, friend Adair. Slippery ones, glistening in more colors than even a watcher's eye can perceive.
I probably should have said. Ask Takeo. Yeah, probably should have said that. Everything living has a soul, fish included. Let's see, what is the precedence for this in the first game? Yeah, there definitely everything living has a soul, and as we have seen, our souls can incarnate in animals. We saw that with Saigani's questline in the first game. Certainly there, that's the one that sticks to my mind the most. But it is interesting that we don't find, like, animal vessels as far as I can remember. So everything living has a soul is an interesting thing. It's not like this correlation here is not necessarily causation in the sense, not even in the sense of the the definition. Just because something has a soul, it doesn't mean that it's living, as we have seen, for example, with the warden that we have in our ship, and I think there's more things. There's definitely a lot of transposition, or whatever they call the putting souls in certain places. Specifically because Adra, leaving Adra at the very least, is not leaving, despite its name. It's like a peanut, which is not a pea or a nut. Is that how it goes? Oh, no, it is a nut. Either way, it's not a pea. The point is, everything that has a soul is not necessarily leaving, but everything that is living necessarily has a soul, which is also, wait, that's not true. I think this is just a platitude, in the sense that normally everything living has a soul, fish included. It's not true, and the reason why it's not true is because of the Hollowborn. They don't have souls. That's the big part of the first game. It doesn't necessarily invalidate this line, which is probably the one that I'm gonna go with. Fish are too simple to have souls. I wouldn't know. Are they simple? I don't know. Are sharks? I think immediately, like, of the biggest fish. Are sharks really smart? I think... I'm not sure. I don't think sharks are super smart. They're certainly not simple, but... I mean, I say they're not super smart in comparison to mammals of the ocean. I don't know. Everything living has a soul, fish included.
Yeah, of course they do. Well, easy to forget that sometimes. Good to be reminded, though, of everything we're fighting for.
Mm-hmm. Let's examine the vortex.
Its cold, dusky energy feels somehow familiar, but you're unable to identify it, or what might be causing it.
It's, yeah, it's what is it, the name of the god that I don't like? The one that controls us. I'm gonna reach out to the anomaly.
It reaches back towards you, tendrils of soul energy interlacing with the prodding edges of your own spirit.
It could also be a whale, which, I mean, would make sense.
The coils of essence tighten, grasping at your soul, pulling at you as you've pulled the souls of others. Your vision blurs as the in-between leaks into your perception of the here. The walls, the pool, everything of the Temple of Revelation runs like water, sloughing away and melting into the empty blackness of the in-between. Not quite empty, no. The fleshy, undulating tendrils of the body of WoW remain, almost aglow in the darkness.
Yeah, it's whale. It would make sense that it would be. Just sort of, like, familiar. Am I really familiar with whale? I think it's just the fact that it's a divine essence. Oh, lovely! Oh, no. The entity's presence presses against the edge of your mind, of your soul, resolving into a soundless voice in the back of your head.
You see, but are also seen, as is your trespass.
You think you can see us?
Oh, this is new. I'd offer to take the first shot, but I'm not sure it'd do much good.
Maya balls her fists at her sides.
Certainly ain't the kind of eyes a gal wants to get lost in.
This terrible place would not be complete without an equally terrible overseer. I feel no empathy in this creature, Captain.
Takeo hugs himself and shivers.
What are you, interloper?
I am Penumbra, the Watcher of Kadnua.
Obviously. That is not the knowledge we seek. You intrude upon the resting place of WoW and soil these collections with your filthy fingers. We would know. Are you one more wizard in pursuit of unearned power? Or something other?
Barath is the god that I was thinking of. Yes! No, I think this is a failure. Is it a failure? Look at this. I am very wizard. Penumbra the Magical at your service.
An obvious deception.
Yeah.
You have proven yourself a murderer and a thief.
Yeah.
We cannot allow you to enter the body, nor to visit harm upon it. Your destructive trespass within these walls cannot be forgiven. Farewell.
No.
Someone in my sights.
No. Oh no. Well, we're out of time for the day. And there's eyes that move when the game is paused. So for right now, I'm Colonel RPG, and this has been Pillars of Eternity 2. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and leave a comment, like the video if you want to see the next episode come out sooner rather than later. But above all, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.